What's up, guys? Welcome to Cage Connor. I am Connor. UFC 329 International Fight Week is still taking place this year, which I'm kind of surprised about, given the UFC having this giant White House card going down about a month before it, a little less than a month before it. But nonetheless, we are still getting International Fight Week this year. Going to go down in the middle of July. I believe the exact day is July 11th. Off the top of my head, probably should have wrote that down. Whatever, it doesn't matter. We have some rumors. We have some birds chirping about what's going to be on this card. Sounding like it's going to be a pretty big card. Obviously, given my title and the thumbnail for the video, you already know. Seems as though Conor McGregor is finally returning to the UFC after a long, what is it, 4 years, 5 years, 5 fucking year layoff. I still remember telling my friend after he broke his leg in the third Dustin Poirier fight or whatever happened, broke his ankle, whatever the fuck actually happened, that like, oh, he'll be back in like a year, but it'll probably take like 2 years given the fact that's Conor McGregor. And it's been 5 fucking years already since then. Unbelievable. Obviously, we have some other rumors going on around this card. We know that one Gable Steveson, who is just the hottest prospect in MMA right now, even though he hasn't even fought anyone notable as of yet. But given his wrestling credentials, he is a very hot prospect in the world of MMA. He has signed with the UFC, and he will be making his UFC debut on this card. I'm going to give you the matchup that I think Gable Steveson will be getting in his UFC debut. Paddy Pimblett also sounding like he's going to be on this card somewhere. Will he be fighting Conor McGregor? I will be answering that question as well. And then we also have a big fight in the rankings at welterweight that is rumored to be going down on this card, and we'll be getting into that one as well. But before we do that, guys, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, tell your friends about it, do all that fun shit. I'd very much appreciate it. All right, let's get into the full thing here then, guys. Now, UFC 329, go down July 11th, I think. Could be wrong on that date. Might have been July 9th. I don't remember. Go down to T-Mobile Arena as UFC International Fight Week typically does. Like I said, middle of July. Rumored to be a return of the one, the only Conor McGregor, finally coming back after a long 5 year layoff. Who will Conor McGregor be fighting on this card is the question, though. It's sounding like things are going good. Dana White, as of yesterday, or about 2 days ago after the UFC Canada card, confirmed at a press conference that things are going good. Now, there are some candidates here. You just saw one of who I think Conor McGregor could possibly be fighting, potentially be fighting. Jorge Masvidal is certainly out there. He has been teasing his UFC return for a little while now. Jorge Masvidal getting quite up there in age. I believe he's 41 as of the time I'm recording this. He might be 42 by the time this fight would actually go down. And that's really up there in age. And I'm surprised UFC would really even be interested in bringing him back. He's certainly a big star, but he's not the star he was about 5 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago at this point. I mean, back in 2019 when Jorge Masvidal was on top of the world, he was a huge star, and that was the time to make the Conor McGregor Jorge Masvidal fight. Now it's lost a lot of its luster, of course. So I don't think they're going to be going this direction. I think if they're going to be bringing Jorge back, they'll certainly give him a big fight. But I think Leon Edwards is the only fight that really makes sense if you're going to be bringing Jorge Masvidal that back. Of course, if they brought Nate Diaz back, that fight would also make sense. Have a rematch in MMA between Nate and Jorge. But I don't know. I don't know. I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if Jorge Masvidal never fights in the UFC again. If those negotiations just kind of go south and the UFC ends up just not being interested. Typically, the UFC is not very interested in re-signing athletes or signing athletes that they can't build upon with in the future. And Jorge Masvidal at 41 years old just doesn't seem like there'd be a whole lot to do with him outside of a Leon Edwards fight, a Nate Diaz fight, or a potential Conor McGregor fight. So I just don't see it. I don't think they're going to end up going that direction. Carlos Prates, interesting enough, was rumored to be fighting Conor McGregor last year. Carlos Prates did confirm that he had negotiations with UFC about this fight potentially happening. Currently, Carlos Prates is scheduled to face Jack Della Maddalena in the beginning of May. I believe that goes down to May 2nd in Australia, so that obviously isn't going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised the UFC going in that direction, just because Carlos Prates is someone young, an up and comer at the welterweight division that they can build upon in the future. Kind of do what the UFC typically does and just send Conor McGregor out to die, send their big star out to die against the young up and comer that they can build future events with. That's typically the direction UFC ends up liking to go, and I could see something like that potentially happening, but I don't think Conor McGregor is gonna agree to that one. So I do rule out Carlos Prates. especially given the fact that he would have to make such a quick turnaround after fighting Jack Della Maddalena. And if he won that fight, I'm sure he'd have his eyes on the title. Paddy Pimblett, certainly in the conversation, right? Huge star in the UFC, huge young star in the UFC, coming off that loss to Justin Gaethje. We will be talking about Paddy Pimblett later in the video, but I do not think they're going to be setting up Conor McGregor versus Paddy Pimblett. That is two of their biggest stars, and I think they want to guarantee Paddy Pimblett a win in his next fight. So I don't. In Conor McGregor, he probably could pretty easily handle Conor McGregor at this stage in his career, I'd imagine. But I don't see them doing that. I think they're going to end up booking Paddy against someone else because I think they eventually want to get Paddy Pimblett into title shot conversations again at the lightweight division. And that's another thing is Paddy Pimblett would have to be fighting at welterweight to fight Conor McGregor. I don't believe Conor McGregor is going to be ever fighting at 155 or lower ever again in his career. And I think they kind of just want to keep Paddy in that same division that he's always been in, which is lightweight. So I don't see them making this fight. The fight I do think that they're going to give Conor McGregor, which is the heavily rumored fight, according to Ariel Helwani, who, like or dislike the guy, he is usually spot on with these things. He wouldn't say the fight that he thinks is going to be going down on International Fight Week or the direction he thinks that the UFC is going without him being absolutely sure that that is the direction the UFC is going. And that, of course, is Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2 for your main event at UFC 329 International Fight Week. This is the fight I think is happening. This is the fight that is being heavily rumored. And so I think all signs are pointing to Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2 going down on International Fight Week. Of course, these two fought ever so long ago, back in, God, when was this? 2013, I want to say, on a random UFC Boston card. I think it was the UFC's return to Boston. Chael Sonnen versus Shogun was supposed to headline, but I think it ended up, no, it was supposed to be Chael Sonnen versus Vanderlei Silva, but then it ended up being Chael Sonnen versus Mauricio Shogun Hua. Doesn't matter. They fought on the prelims of that fight, and it was the biggest fight heading into that card still, even though they were on the prelims. This was Conor McGregor's second fight in the UFC. It was Max Holloway's second or third fight in the UFC, I want to say. Of course, Conor McGregor did pick up a decision win in this fight. This went down at featherweight back at 145. But these two were just some young bucks. Conor McGregor had to wrestle fuck his way to a decision in this fight, actually. A lot of people don't like to bring that one up because Conor McGregor's come up was so exciting. But this fight was not very exciting. I think Conor McGregor tore his ACL or something like that. Something in his knee went wrong in this fight, and it forced him to wrestle a lot in this fight, and he was able to take down Max Holloway. Now, obviously, this fight happened 13 years ago, so they are completely different fighters then. There's not really too much you can read into going back and looking at their first fight to determine how the second fight will end up going. Conor McGregor, of course, his last fight was 5 years ago against Dustin Poirier in the third time these two fought. Of course, 6 months prior, they had a rematch. Dustin Poirier knocked him out in the second round. We all remember, of course. And then Conor McGregor, at some point during this fight, ends up breaking his ankle, stepping back on it weirdly, and that put him out. That changed the trajectory of his career because it was seeming like we were going to get a more active Conor McGregor during this time period. And this broken ankle really just ended up fucking everything. Of course, since then, he promised to get his revenge on Dustin Poirier, which doesn't seem possible at this point, given the fact that Dustin Poirier has retired. I could see a boxing match in like 5 years or whatever the fuck when they're both in their 40s. I could definitely see something like that end up happening, but for now, Conor McGregor will not get his revenge, probably ever, on Dustin Poirier. Of course, since then, Conor McGregor been starring in movies, hasn't been fighting at all, has done some random exhibition boxing matches back in Ireland, which, videos of that are online if you want to go look those up. Was supposed to fight one Michael Chandler after the two coached the Ultimate Fighter back in 2023. That, of course, did not end up happening, which I still feel bad for Michael Chandler. I really do feel like it should be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler headlining this International Fight Week, but is what it is. Michael Chandler will now fight Mauricio Ruffy on the UFC White House card, and he's probably going to get absolutely starched. Still absolutely hilarious to me. Like, sorry, man, we can't give you the Conor McGregor fight. How about you fight Conor McGregor from 2013? How about that? That's probably not going to go very well for Michael Chandler. Max Holloway coming off the loss of his BMF belt to one Charles Oliveira, in a very, for lack of a better word, just boring fight. A lot of people did not like this fight. A lot of fans did not like this fight. Charles Oliveira doing exactly what we didn't want him to do in a BMF title match, and that was use his grappling, use his wrestling, and make it a pretty boring decision. Nonetheless, Charles Oliveira is your BMF title holder as of right now. Max Holloway, of course, didn't look good in that fight at all, and really kind of exploited how bad Max Holloway's grappling kind of is, or just at least comparatively to one Charles Oliveira. Which no shame in that. As I'm saying that, Charles Oliveira, one of the best grapplers in UFC history. But nonetheless, it doesn't seem like Charles Oliveira will get rewarded with the Conor McGregor fight for winning that BMF belt. If he would have won it in different fashion, I think we would probably be looking at Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira for the BMF title. But I think given how that fight went, the UFC's like, nah, no thanks. We're just going to go with Max Holloway, who lost that fight, ironically enough. Max Holloway, of course, before that, defended his BMF belt against Dustin Poirier, picking up the decision there. Of course, before that, got his first knockout loss against Ilia Topuria down a featherweight. Before that, knocked out Justin Gaethje. You guys know Max Holloway very well, I am sure. And yeah, I mean, it's still an incredibly interesting fight. I think it is smart in the UFC's end to make this fight now, given the fact that they will continue to have events headlined by Max Holloway. Max Holloway seems like a UFC guy. I don't think he'll ever really think about leaving the promotion. And I think Conor McGregor does think about leaving the promotion. I think Conor McGregor, he only has 2 fights left on his UFC contract as far as we know right now. And I do not see him re-signing with the UFC. I think there's too many other opportunities out there for Conor McGregor for him to stick around in the UFC for too much longer. He obviously owns a huge portion of BKFC, the bare knuckle promotion. I could see a world where Conor McGregor desperately wants to go do that, and he does end up going to do that. I could see a world with Netflix and MVP involved in MMA now, where Conor McGregor goes over and has a fight for them. Of course, Nate Diaz still out there, not currently signed to the UFC, so I think there are far too many options for Conor McGregor not to go and explore his other opportunities out there at the very least, especially given his age, right? He's approaching 38 years old, or he is 38 years old. And I do not think Conor McGregor will be sticking around in the UFC much longer. That's just my prediction. I don't, even 2 more fights for Conor McGregor just seems unrealistic at this point, given his inactivity. Let's just see where we are after this one fight, and then we can kind of determine. I do think McGregor is one of those guys too, where he would kind of always keep his name in the conversation, always keep his name in the fight game going around. Much like Floyd Mayweather does now in his 50s, right? You kind of always just see rumors popping up about Floyd Mayweather boxing this guy or that guy. I think Conor McGregor is going to do the same thing. And I do think we'll be looking at like Conor McGregor having fights well into his 50s. Not a lot, but I mean, look at Mike Tyson. He's damn near 60. He just fought fucking Jake Paul, right? It's I think Conor McGregor is going to be one of those guys who's going to be extremely inactive, but he will always keep his name around in the fight game. So that's the prediction. Conor McGregor, Max Holloway 2 for your main event, International Fight Week, UFC 329. For your co-main, I'm going with Paddy Pimblett versus Dan Hooker. Now, a lot of rumors going around about who Paddy Pimblett could potentially be fighting on this card. I see a lot of people throwing around Paddy Pimblett versus Conor McGregor. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think that's going to end up happening. A lot of the big rumor right now is Paddy Pimblett versus BSD, Benoit Saint Denis. I will get into the reasons I don't see that happening. Paddy Pimblett versus Renato Moicano, that's kind of the fight. I thought that's the direction I thought they would end up going in. Renato Moicano was coming off that win over Chris Duncan from last month. Might be a bit too quick a turnaround for Renato Moicano at this stage in his career. I think they want to get Paddy a win, right? And I think the best option to get Paddy a win is Dan Hooker. Out of guys inside the top 10 at lightweight, I think it is Dan Hooker at the moment. I think Renato Moicano possesses a grappling advantage over Paddy Pimblett that I think might be a little too much for Paddy, and he could potentially end up losing that fight. Mateus Gamera is throwing his name in there to fight Paddy Pimblett next. I think that'd be an awesome fight, but again, pretty big grappling advantage over Paddy Pimblett, and I do think he could potentially have his way, and that could end up being a boring fight, which you don't want that for Paddy, who could potentially become a megastar in the UFC if you get him the right fights and get him the right wins. And then, of course, BSD, Benoit Saint Denis, who is heavily rumored right now, as of, what is today, April 20th, to be fighting Paddy Pimblett on this card. I just don't see it, man. I don't see the UFC going in that direction. That's a very dangerous fight for Paddy Pimblett, and I think the UFC wants to get him back into those title talks. I think they want to get going again. Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria at some point. and I putting him against BSD right now, that sounds like a bad idea to me. I think BSD might easily beat Paddy Pimblett. It might just walk through him. So I think BSD is fighting soon. He's teasing a fight soon. He's teasing that he has a fight announcement soon. I think there's an open spot on that Azerbaijan card, which goes down at the end of June for the UFC. And I think it's going to end up being Arman Sarukian versus Benoit Saintani. He's headlining that card. That's my guess. I don't think either of them will be fighting on International Fight Week, but I do think they will be headlining that card, which goes down on June 26th, I believe. So that's my guess. I hope the UFC books Paddy Pimblett versus Benoit Saintani. That's an awesome fight, but I just don't see him doing it. I think it's too risky for Paddy, and I think the UFC is gonna try to give him the most favorable matchup possible, which is Dan Hooker. So I go back to Dan Hooker, of course. These two got a little bit of heat behind them, talking a lot of shit between each other. And I just think at this point of Dan Hooker's career, this is probably the easiest fight in the top 10 for Paddy Pimblett. He should be able to grapple him pretty easily, get him on the ground, land some big ground and pound. Of course, just Paddy Pimblett, excuse me, he's coming off that loss to Justin Gaethje in the on the UFC just debut on Paramount card from back in January. We all know how that fight went. One of the best fights of the year thus far, of course. Probably is the fight of the year front runner as of right now. But nonetheless, Paddy Pimblett did lose that fight. And it was a war. It was a war. I mean, he tried his best, but Justin Gaethje was too much for him. Too much too soon for Paddy Pimblett, I think. But Justin Gaethje is a fucking animal. Of course, he will be fighting Ilia Topuria on that White House card later this year. Of course, before that, Paddy Pimblett picked up, was on a 7-fight win streak, beat Michael Chandler, Jared Gordon, Bobby Green. Questionable if he beat Jared Gordon. Dan Hooker coming off that loss to Benoit Saintani from back in February. Of course, immediately before that was his loss to Arman Sarukian back in November. So he's been very active. Dan Hooker's saying he still wants to be active. So I think they will get him a fight relatively soon. He's not getting any younger here, and I think he knows now's the time to kind of cash in on these big fights, given his age and how much longer Dan Hooker probably has inside the promotion or just inside the sport in general. He did not look good at all in the Benoit Saint-Denis fight. He did not look good at all in the Arman Sarukian fight, but these guys are extremely high level. These are two of the best fighters at this UFC lightweight division. And I think it will answer a lot of questions of where Paddy Pimblett actually is. Like, okay, you lost the decision to Justin Gaethje. I do hold Justin Gaethje in a bit higher of a category than Dan Hooker at this point. And so we'll see. We'll see if he's able to get past Dan Hooker. It should be still somewhat of a test for him. Should be a fun build up. You can imagine these two going at it at a press conference. That'll be quite fun. And yeah, that's just the route. I think that's the direction I think the UFC is going to end up going here. Again, this video is me trying to predict the direction the UFC is going. Not necessarily what I want. It's not the fight I want. I want Paddy Pimblett versus BSD. If they actually book that, I will be shocked but very happy. In your next fight, this is the rumored welterweight fight that I was talking about earlier. Leon Edwards versus Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez fresh out of prison. Leon Edwards fresh off a knockout loss to Carlos Prates. Daniel Rodriguez said in a recent interview that the UFC has offered him this fight and that he is accepting. I suppose now we're just waiting on word if Leon Edwards is accepting this fight. And I think this is a good fight for Leon Edwards. He's obviously coming off that knockout loss to Carlos Prates, his first time getting knocked out in his career. He's on a 3-fight losing skid. Of course, before that, he got submitted by Sean Brady in a London event from earlier in 2025. Then, of course, before that, he lost his title to Bilal Muhammad in a pretty one-sided decision. So it's been rough going for Leon Edwards. But I do think this is a good fight for him, especially given the fact that Daniel Rodriguez is fresh out of prison right now. He did an interview with Harry O'Roney recently saying that he wasn't really able to train to the degree that he would have liked to in prison, which obviously makes a whole ton of sense. I mean, fuck are they gonna let you do in some Mexican prison? Of course, right before he went to jail, he had a Fight of the Year contender with Kevin Holland back at the UFC Louisiana card from last July, and which was a fantastic fight. I mean, this is the best Daniel Rodriguez probably ever looked. Granted, I do think Kevin Holland was a little compromised in that fight, just given his activity leading up to this fight. But nonetheless, Daniel Rodriguez got the win, got himself in the rankings. He's currently ranked number 14 in the UFC welterweight division. Before the Kevin Holland fight, he knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio. Before that, he picked up the decision win over Alex Moreno. Daniel Rodriguez, one of those guys. I think there's a lot of guys in the welterweight division that can end up beating him. I don't. I know he's ranked number 14 right now. I don't actually think he's the 14th best welterweight in the world. But I guess we will see. We will see just exactly where he is in his career. We will also find out exactly where Leon Edwards is in his career. Like I was saying earlier, I think it's smart on the management side of Leon Edwards to get this fight going quick. Don't let Dana Rodriguez get back into full shape. Don't let him get a full camp in. Uh, this card is a little under 3 months away right now, so he will be able to do a lot of training, but probably not as much as he would like to. And I think that's a smart part on Leon Edwards' management to get this fight going very quickly because you need to get Leon Edwards a win. You can't be 0-4 in your last four fights inside the UFC. That's a very difficult spot to be for Leon Edwards. Potentially could be looking at getting cut from the UFC if he loses this fight to Daniel Rodriguez. So time will tell. But nonetheless, I like this fight, and I think they will put it on the main card of International Fight Week. Your next fight, the one women's fight that has to be on these UFC pay-per-views, although they have kind of gotten away from this on the Paramount era, I've noticed a little bit. But I still think they will throw one women's fight on this card. And I think that will be Juliana Pena versus Aline Perez. Juliana Pena coming off that loss to Kayla Harrison from back in June. Juliana Pena really very inactive in her career. She's always been very inactive. I know she's dealt with a lot of injuries and whatnot throughout her career, but seemingly like right now in this present moment, I don't think she's dealing with an injury. She's just sitting out waiting for the right opportunity to fight. And I think she just needs to get going here. The women's bantamweight division is gonna be highlighted a lot by MMA fans in these coming months. Just given that I know we don't have Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes booked yet, but we do have Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano booked, which I know is happening at featherweight, but nonetheless is extremely tied to the women's bantamweight division, especially given the amount that Ronda Rousey is talking about the UFC bantamweight division, and given the amount that Ronda Rousey is talking about Kayla Harrison leading up to this fight. And I think it'd be smart for Juliana Pena to hurry up and try to get a fight in here just to keep her name in the division, keep her name in fans' minds. And I think Aline Perez is probably the best match to do that with. Of course, Aline Perez is on a 6-fight win streak right now. She's coming off a win over Macy Chiasson. And 6-fight win streak at the UFC Women's Bantamweight division is a big deal. Not a lot of girls can claim that. It's a very thin division, very hollow division. Not a lot going on here. Not a lot of excitement going on here. So I think this is a good matchup for Juliana Pena. I think it's a good spot for Juliana Pena to pick up a win. And like I was saying earlier, keep her name in fans' minds and keep her name going. If she ever wants to get a rematch with Amanda Nunes or Kayla Harrison or anyone like that, she needs to keep fighting. She can't just sit out and remain inactive. Maybe she can. Maybe she's a bit smarter than I am, but I think it's a bad look at this stage in a career to just sit out. So Aline Perez, good a fight as any, on a good win streak. You might as well try to get a win over her just to keep your name going. In your last fight, here's the Gable Stevenson fight that I am going with. I do not think, I know people want Gable Stevenson to fight like a Josh Hokit or Walter Cortez Acosta or a Walter Walker or something like that. I don't think we're getting any of that, man. I think quite frankly, I'm surprised Gable Stevenson's not making his debut, or excuse me, not his debut, but is not fighting in the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series slot. I thought they would kind of go that same route, kind of like they did with Bo Nickel, and make him fight a couple times, just given the lack of competition that he's had outside of the UFC and just the inexperience in MMA that he has as a whole. So I'm going with Gable Stevenson versus Denzel Freeman. Now you're probably asking, who the fuck is Denzel Freeman? Denzel Freeman is 0-2, or no, excuse me, 1-1 inside of the UFC. He's the guy that got knocked out by Josh Hokit in on the January card, on the same card as Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. Yeah, that is the direction I think they will go. I think they will give Gable Stevenson someone way down in the rankings at the UFC, just the easiest possible guy at heavyweight that the UFC has currently signed, and I think that is Denzel Freeman. Gable Stevenson, of course, only has 3 MMA fights in his career. Has 1 fight in that dirty boxing promotion that John Jones and Jorge Masvidal own. and has built quite the team around him as he heads into MMA and heads into the big leagues in MMA. He trains at the Greg Jackson camp down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Of course, with John Jones, with Greg Jackson, uh, and has developed quite a close relationship to John Jones. John Jones kind of mentoring him through his career here, and is really seemingly prepared to give his all to Gable Steveson and try to get him to become the UFC heavyweight champion. Of course, Denzel Freeman, as I was saying, his only notable fight was the Josh Hokett fight from back in January, in which he got dominated and got knocked out in the first round. He picked up a win before that late last year inside of the UFC. And it's just the lowest guy I could find in these UFC rankings. Not even obviously he's not ranked, but just the lowest heavyweight I could find in UFC. Who is that? I think it's Denzel Freeman, and I think they're gonna want to go the direction that they went with Bo Nickel, that they went with Paddy Pimblett, that they went with Sean O'Malley, and give Gable Steveson the right fights and the easiest fights possible before we start feeding him to the wolves. And there's really not a lot of options at heavyweight, so. Denzel Freeman, you will be fed the Gable Steveson, in my opinion. That's my guess. I don't think we will get anyone notable fighting Gable Steveson for at least a year. I think they're gonna want to give him a little bit of time here to develop. Here goes a look at what I'm predicting to be the full card of UFC 329. As we said, main event: Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2, co-main Paddy Pimblett versus Dan Hooker. Then rounding out the main card, we got Leon Edwards versus Daniel Rodriguez, Juliana Pena versus Alan Perez, Gable Steveson versus one Denzel Freeman, which I'm sure you're all pumped about. Here's some random prelims I came up with. Walter Walker, we mentioned him earlier. Walter Walker versus Sergey Spivak. That'd be fun. Jose Delgado, who's extremely fun, versus Jamal Emmers, who's also extremely fun. That'd be a fun fight. Soriano versus Mirtek Orobai. That's a very fun fight at welterweight. The winner of that could possibly crack into the rankings, or should at the very least be next to fight someone or in the UFC welterweight rankings. And then Ian Kuchelabre versus Bogdan Guskov. Bogdan Guskov just got his fight with Jan Blachowicz canceled. They were supposed to have a rematch due to their draw from last year. Ian Kuchelabre picked up a big win earlier this year by guillotine over Omar Sy, so I think that's a fun fight to set up as well. Might be a little too far down in the rankings for Bogdan Guskov, but you never know. I don't think any of these prelims will actually come to fruition, but I'm just throwing some random shit out there because, I think they're fun. There's some fun matchups there. And I don't know, maybe I'll get lucky. UFC ends up making one of those fights. Nonetheless, that is my prediction for the main card of UFC 329 and a little bit of prelims there, like I was saying. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, do all that fun shit. Let me know what you think the headline will be for UFC 329. Let me know who you think Conor McGregor is going to end up fighting. Let me know if you think I'm entirely wrong about Paddy Pimblett versus Dan Hooker and they actually are going to do the BSD fight. Fingers crossed there. But other than that, guys, I will catch you in the next one.